JohnFraser was a fur trader licensed by the province of Pennsylvania for its western frontier. As an interpreter with Native Americans, a gunsmith, a guide, and he was a lieutenant in the British Army. He was also a land speculator. He served in several of England's expeditions against the French and their allies in the vicinity of Fort Duquesne, and later called Fort Pitt. JohnFraser, early western Pennsylvania frontiersman, has been neglected in the history of western Pennsylvania storytelling. While the frontier of Pennsylvania was gradually pushed westward, certain individuals went ahead of a more organized movement. These individuals had to fight hostile Indians, the weather, loneliness, and other conditions that at times made their situation very dangerous. As the frontier became more populated, these individuals became important persons. Such an individual was JohnFraser. In the matter of an actual settlement of society in western Pennsylvania, he occupied a place as important as George Washington, George Croghan, and others who played a role in western Pennsylvania folklore and history. JohnFraser the trader was an accomplished gunsmith, and he was a blacksmith at the age of 19 by 1740 when he established himself at Venango. Venango was located where French Creek meets the Allegheny River. At that time, it was the far western edge of North Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. Today, it is a small town of Franklin, Pennsylvania. Fraser became a popular trader with the Iroquois tribes and their allies. He traded goods and gunsmithing for furs and obtained a trader's license around 1748. He was an industrious young man who constantly strove to improve himself. For some 10 years there, he bartered with his gunsmithing services, English manufactured goods, and alcohol in exchange for Indian pelts and furs. 1749, French expeditionary activity led by Pierre-Joseph Céloron de Blainville forced Fraser to abandon Venango and move south to the forks of the Ohio. At the mouth of Turtle Creek, by the Monongahela River, he built a new cabin from which to trade with the Indians once again, where he aided George Washington and his guide Christopher Gist during Washington's early diplomacy with the French. Trouble started for Fraser in 1750. In May, two of his employees, Maurice Turner and Ralph Kilgore, were captured by French Indians at the Twitewee town near Piquet in present-day Ohio and taken to Detroit. They later escaped and made their way to William Johnson, a British agent for the Iroquois. They told Johnson that the French had raised 500 men to attack the Indians who were still friendly to the English. Fraser continued trading from Venango during the year of 1750. This same year in November, on the east side of Lake Erie, he was chased by the French and was forced to abandon trade goods belonging to Fraser and James Young, valued at 217 pounds. Almost 3 years later, on May 25th, 1753, Fraser wrote to William Trent and other traders at Logstown, warning them that the French forces were on the Allegheny and planning to eradicate the English trade. The French were supported by the Delaware Indians, but were opposed by the Iroquois and their allies. According to Washington's 1753 journal, by this time Fraser's cabin at Venango flew the French colors. By the next year, both the Venango cabin and its forge had been incorporated by the French into the new Fort McCult. Later in 1753, a third Fraser employee, William, narrowly escaped being captured by French Captain Philippe Thomas de Joncaire, and William warned Fraser that Joncaire was coming to Venango. Fraser then abandoned Venango and fled along with a number of Iroquois and Mingos, including the Seneca Half-King. Harassed by the French, Fraser moved his base of operations almost 70 miles to the mouth of Turtle Creek on the Monongahela River in the fall of 1753. The Turtle Creek post was a few miles east of the forks of the Ohio. Fraser continued trading and smithing from Turtle Creek. In addition to trade, he was involved with George Croghan, Andrew Montour, and William Trent in efforts to resist the French. George Washington and Christopher Gist stayed at Fraser's Turtle Creek cabin when Washington went out to accost the French over their incursions into the Ohio country. Fraser wrote to his partner in the East, James Young, that trade was poor since the French would not allow the northern Indians to hunt. Young and Harris Ferry was the eastern end of their trading operation. During a quarter of a century on the Pennsylvania frontier, John Fraser gave valuable service to the settlement of western Pennsylvania. First of all English-speaking frontiersmen, he observed the hostile movements of the French and reported it so accordingly. He was able to do so because of his trading post at Venango, which situated at the junction of the French Creek and the Allegheny River. Both streams were heavily traveled by Indians who respected John Fraser and who wished that more white traders had Fraser's honesty and fairness. Moreover, John Fraser served against the French with Captain William Trent, George Washington, General Braddock, and General Forbes. Later in 1768, he and William Thompson were nominated by Lieutenant Governor Penn to go to Redstone Creek to warn off the settlers. Although he was not so enlarged in land speculating as George Washington was, John Fraser not only secured outright extensive acreage for himself, but also bought and sold land applications that involved additional acres of land. The most important feature of his career, however, was that he served as Justice of the Peace at Bedford County from March 11, 1771, until his death in 1773, at the age of 52. It can be asserted that John Fraser is one of the least understood persons in Western Pennsylvania history. Well, thank you guys for checking out this video, and if you like this video and videos like this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share this video with your friends. And always remember to get out there and explore. Thanks, guys.